Good morning. In these presentations, we will discuss the effect of beam column joints flexibility on the seismic response of setback AC buildings designed according to the Algerian seismic code. The Algerian seismic code assumes that the beam column joints in monolithic reinforcement concrete buildings are fully rigid. However, many experiments have proven the existence of relative rotations in these connections, and then the presence of relative transfer of bending moment. In our study, the model of alpha and L depths are used to model the beam column connections. The model considers two mechanisms. Mechanism A, which takes into account the slippage of the beam reinforcement inside the joints. Mechanism B, which takes into account the cracks opening at the beam ends. To investigate the joint behaviors and its effects on the overall performance of RC frames, 3 6-story structures were selected from the literature. Here, pushover analysis is performed to estimate the building's responses. The results showed that the joint flexibility affects the model properties of the structure and increases the higher mode effects. Also, it is clear in the capacity curves that the flexibility joint decreases the structural resistance in all the studied cases. In addition, the target displacements of the studied frames with flexible joints are higher than those from rigid frames. In terms of story drifts, we can see that the drifts in the flexible joints cases exceed the RPA limit but remain under the limit required by the ACE code. In our study, the response reduction factors is also calculated. As we can see, this factor is decreased significantly when the joints are considered flexible. Comparing the results of the frames with rigid and flexible connections, the main outcomes are summarized as follows. The flexibility of the beam column connections can affect the model properties of the buildings under study and gives large value of periods. Based on the results of pushover analysis, the deformable connections always decreases the strength of the structure. Also, they increase the displacements and the story drifts. The setback irregularity is in this study does not make any major difference. When the beam column joints are considered fully rigid, the Algerian seismic code is conservative in terms of response reduction factors R. However, when the joint flexibility is taken into account, RPA overestimates the R factor, resulting in underestimating of the design-based shear.